Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me are my co-hosts, Matt Rupert.
How you doing, my man?
And Matt Jackson.
What's going on, guys?
I am recovering from a fractured finger playing basketball, so that's super fun. Trying to figure out why my hand doctor doesn't want to take my insurance. So yay. That's just what I need in the middle of a busy week, getting ready for the draft with, I do college ministry. So it's also the last week of the school semester. A lot going on, but happy to be here with you guys. Little break, get my mind off of all of it. This is the fun part here.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not like you're having to design a website with a broken finger or anything. You know, it'll be okay.
Yeah. My procrastination got the better of me on that one. I kept telling myself, like, I've got a couple of weeks to design the post-draft version of the Rookie Guide app. And then I broke my finger and now it's hard to type. So don't procrastinate, kids. But here we go. We're getting into it. If you haven't been following along, we are in what we're calling our second look series. It's also kind of a rankings battle series. So since December, we have been going through every single week, going in depth on a prospect. We called that our Inside the Prospect series. And so we covered dozens of them between the main show and the bonus show for just our members. Every week we would just take one prospect. We would go really deep. But some of those were back in December, including who we're going to talk about tonight. Carnell Tate is one of the guys. He was our very first wide receiver that we watched, very first player that we watched. And so we definitely wanted to go get eyeballs on him again before the draft coming up this week. And we're comparing him to Makai Lemon, who we did just a few weeks later. That was either later in December or sometime early January, maybe. And those are kind of our front runners for wide receiver one. So we wanted to go back, watch the two of them side by side, have a little rankings battle there, see what we notice, and also get a second look at these guys closer to the draft while we're at it. So yeah, I'm excited. These two guys were really fun to watch the first time. They were just as fun, if not more so, to watch the second time. And I definitely feel like I noticed some things and learned some things here on the second watch that I'm seeing it a little bit differently than I did the first time. So let's get into it. We are going to be looking at some stats courtesy of PFF. We're going to be looking at Lemon and Tate in comparison to each other and to the other 270 FBS receivers with 50-plus targets in 2025. And all of that data will be used to kind of supplement our primary, which is our film analysis. So we're going to go trait by trait and really just talk through, like, what did we see, if anything, differently from the first time that we watched these guys, and how are we comparing them to each other in each attribute category. And so, as always, with the wide receiver position, we are starting with release and route running. We believe the first and most important job that a wide receiver has is to get open. That's how you earn targets. That's how you rack up the PPR points. So, what did we notice here? I'll throw it to you first, Rupert. Anything first that you noticed differently from your first watch of these guys, and then how do you compare them with each other?
I didn't see too much differently on the route running for either guy, really. With Tate, it just kind of set home with me that, like, I have his short and intermediate route running at a 7 compared to the other top guys where they're like 8.5 and 9. And it just kind of reinforced what I saw. Like, I didn't think that he sunk his hips really well, like on those quick hitch routes, the curls. I just didn't think he was as sharp on those shorter routes. Granted, he didn't run them as much, but I still thought that he was just an elite deep route runner. So I still left him at a 9 there. And Makai Lemon, I had him at an 8.5 for short and intermediate routes, and then 8 for his deep routes. Honestly, I just pretty much saw the same with both guys in these areas.
Yeah, so stylistically they're pretty different players, but if you had to give like a tick in one's favor, like who's the winner? Who's the better route runner here?
I definitely think Lemon's a little more well-rounded, and then Tate is that like specialist. The guy I think is going to get open more often at the NFL and earn more targets is Lemon, in my opinion.
Okay,
See,
Jackson, I'll throw it to you. Did you see it the same?
now, one of the things that I kind of saw differently, I don't know, like I ended up knocking Lemon's route running down ever so slightly, kind of in all three areas. I still think he's a phenomenal route runner. Like, don't get me wrong. I still think that that's kind of his crowning achievement. I think he's great short to intermediate. He's great deep routes. I knocked down his release a little bit. It just wasn't as refined, I feel like, as maybe I thought it was initially. He has some wow plays that I noticed where he could really get open and has such a clean release and gains yards of separation, but those felt fewer and far between in my second watch than they did in my first watch. I would say arguably the better route runner on a more consistent basis in my mind was Carnell Tate. He's not as great short to intermediate, and release wise, he plays more bully ball than he does foot refinement. But like when it comes to the deep routes down the field, the stutter step outside inside and then breaking outside, like he's a much better deep route runner. And I think just the style of play that Carnell Tate plays, like that's going to transition in my eyes better to the NFL than maybe a Makai Lemon. I'm not saying that he's a better route runner, but I did notice that Makai Lemon wasn't as phenomenal. Like I had him at nines, I think, in most of my areas in route running the first time I watched him, and I just wasn't there the second time.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more seeing it the way that you are, Jackson. I think to your point, Rupert, the route tree for Tate, it was, I don't want to say it was limited because he did show that he could run every route in the tree. But as far as like a percentage, like he ran a pretty low percentage of like slants and quick outs and a lot of that short to intermediate stuff. He didn't run it as high of a rate as what you saw from Makai Lemon. He was asked to do more of the deep stuff. That being said, when Tate did run those routes, I thought he looked really good. So that's where, you mentioned you didn't think he kind of sunk his hips as well or didn't look as crisp. I kind of disagree there. I thought he looked really good doing it. It's less of like a sharp, like plant a foot, and um, it's more of like a gliding. I don't know how to describe it. It's like just really smooth the way that his hips are so fluid and he just kind of like into those out routes, he just like glided, and the way that he could snap it off from vertical to horizontal so suddenly and really flatten that thing off without it taking like 3 yards to kind of curve his out route. I thought it was a thing of beauty. So I do still have Makai Lemon higher. I have Makai Lemon at an 8.5 for short to intermediate routes. Which is the same as I had Tyson, and slightly lower than Concepcion, who was at a 9. And so Carnell Tate is at a 7.5. So he's just a little bit lower. I mean, he's a point lower than those other guys. And a lot of that to me, it had more to do with like the lack of volume. I would want to see him be more of a go to every down possession kind of guy. And he just wasn't earning targets in college, at least at the same rate as those other guys. And a lot of that had to do with Jeremiah Smith being there. And I mean, there's different reasons for it, but yeah, I think I would want to see him take a higher percentage of short to intermediate routes at the next level. I would want to see a little bit of a role change from a fantasy standpoint. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. But on the release, I docked Lemon he was at a 7.5. I dropped him to a 7. There were some really nice releases. I also saw in there particularly against Notre Dame, a good handful of reps where he just got jammed up and kind of bullied on the release versus press coverage. And then Tate was kind of the opposite. I had him at a 7. I bumped him up to a 7.5. So what was a half-point advantage for Lemon, I've actually got a half-point advantage for Tate now on the release. And of course, I think Tate is a good bit better as a deep route runner. I've got him at a 9 versus Lemon at an 8. So Tate with a slightly better release versus press and a better deep route runner. I'm going to give the slight edge as a route runner to Tate. I think Lemon is maybe quicker in a short area, but Tate's technique, I think, is more refined. I mean, he just looks like a professional route runner out there. There's no wasted motion in any of it. Every jab step, every head fake, everything has a purpose, and he's just remarkably smooth. So for me, very slight edge there to Carnell Tate. But again, it's hard to compare because they're two different styles of route runners. And I could totally see what you're saying, Rupert. Like, if the roles stay the same in the NFL and Tate is used more as that deep threat and he's not seeing that high volume of targets, and Makai Lemon is used in the same way that he was in college, where he's doing more of that slot underneath kind of work, I could see Lemon generating more PPR points. That range of outcomes is certainly there. But yeah, I think in terms of like consistently winning at all 3 levels and in terms of having a more refined technique, that's why I'm going to give the slight edge to Tate there. So let's go to the next area here. And it's another area where they're both really strong, but we're going to talk about ball skills. So that is hands, contested catch, ball tracking down the field, body control. I would throw physicality into this, although physicality plays into a lot of areas. Blocking, it plays into your routes, but physicality certainly at the catch point is a significant thing. So yeah, let's talk ball skills. And I'll throw it to you first this time, Jackson. What stood out to you? Is there anything that you changed in your grades from your first watch? And yeah, we'll start there before we start comparing the guys. Anything you saw differently?
You know, it's funny doing exercises like this. One of two things can happen, right? Like you can either come into it and go like, oh, I saw this wrong the first time and let me go and change my grades. Or you can come into this second watch series and go, man, this guy is every bit as good at this as I thought he was. Mm-hmm. And for me, when it comes to the ball skills of Carnell Tate, like it was that he's every bit as good at the ball skills as I thought he was. Like he is just a menace across the board. Like I've got straight 9s across the board: hands, contested catch radius, body control. Like anything you want him to do at the catch point, the point of attack, boxing defenders out, using his strength, using his size, extending to the ball. Like he does it all at a phenomenal level. One of the takeaways that I came away from really was just how big of a difference, like in some areas, but especially in this one, that there was between Carnell Tate and Makai Lemon. That gap is much larger the second time than I thought it was. And again, like I didn't give Makai Lemon bad grades. Like I still have him as an 8 for hands. I've got him at an 8 for contested catch. I did knock his catch radius down a half point from 7.5 to 7. I thought that he's limited a lot by his frame. Doesn't really extend well to the ball in certain scenarios. So I docked that a little bit. To have his body control at 7.5, I think some of the sidelines across the middle, work in the middle of the field, he does that still at a really high level. But for me, the gap between these two prospects when it comes to just ball skills in general, like I'm still struggling here, like in areas like hands. Like I feel like I want to give Carnell Tate a 10 there. Like he's elite when it comes to ball skills. And I felt so vindicated giving him 9s and then coming back and going, yep, you're every bit who I thought you were as a prospect in this area.
Well, that's a perfect segue right into me. So I had Tate at 9 for hands and 9 for contested catch. On second watch, I bumped both those up to 10. It was just, the first player we watch of the year, like, I'm like, I don't want to give this guy above a 9. I don't want to say he's like, the peak of kind of generational talent in this area. But on second watch, like, there's just no way I couldn't. And I think the PFF data backs that up. Like Tate didn't have a single drop, and what did he have? Like 85% contested catch rate, which is bananas. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you can do better. So I was like, I don't know how I can't not give him a 10. I thought about maybe 9.5, but I was just like, I don't know if we're ever going to see someone at that level again. So those two bumped up for me. The rest kind of stayed the same, which they were all extremely high. I had him at an 8.5 for catch radius, 9 for body control, 9 for ball tracking. And Lemon, I think his ball skills are elite as well. He just doesn't have that kind of catch radius, but I think he kind of makes up for it with some really good leaping ability. But I pretty much have him like 8s across the board, except for catch radius, which is 6.
Yeah, I think I saw it similarly to both of you guys. And yeah, I think this is one of those where you go back, the very first guy you watch of the year, you made this point, Rupert. Like, you're a little hesitant to give 9s and 10s. You haven't watched tape since last year's draft class. You're kind of shaking off the rust. You're like, okay, that's a really nice catch, but I don't want to overreact and da 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 da. Well, now we come back and it's April and we've watched 70 prospects, and you go back and you watch Tate and you're like, yeah, this dude's different. Like, I mean, his ball skills are literally teach tape, like a coach that was going to show, like, this is how you should attack the ball with your hands. Here's the diamond technique that you're supposed to use. Here's how you adjust to a catch. Here's how you like stiffen your body and do the toe tap. Like, coaches could literally go to Carnell Tate's tape and pause it and be like, that's how you do it. It's picture perfect. You couple that with the 6'2" length. He's got, like, I think 97th or 98th percentile hands. Like, he's got humongous hands, long arms. Really the only knock that you could put on Carnell Tate in this area is he's got a thin frame. So at 6'2", he's sub 200 pounds, at 192 pounds. So I think Lemon is heavier than him despite being 3 inches shorter. And so for me, that physicality for Tate, it's not like a huge knock. I actually bumped that up a little bit. I had it at a 6 for the first watch, and I ended up bumping it up to a 7.5. So I just saw enough instances where he like was really physical as a run blocker and like driving his man backwards, holding his block for a long time, fighting through some physicality on a route to get open, like using his physicality well at the catch point. Where I'm comfortable saying he's above average in terms of his use of physicality, despite the slender frame. But a 7.5 is the only area in ball skills that he's below a 9 for me. So yeah, 9 for hands, and I was really tempted to go up to a 10. 9 for contested catch, 9 for catch radius, 9 for body control, 9 for ball tracking. And I should pause at this point for people who may be new to the show and just explain all these numbers that we're throwing out. A 6 is NFL average. 7 is like good by NFL standards. 8 is great by NFL standards. 9 is incredible. And 10 is like, Hall of Fame level, essentially. So if we're saying 10 for hands for Carnell Tate, that's the name that we have beside that is Larry Fitzgerald. We're saying he has Larry Fitzgerald-esque hands, which I'm at a 9. Maybe that's like, just seeing that name, Larry Fitzgerald, kind of scared me off. It's like, nobody's Larry Fitzgerald.
I mean, when you have a guy that has more tackles in his professional career than he does drops, I mean, that's saying something.
Yeah. But I'm really tempted to go.
I will say on that, I do have a note about Carnell Tate making a tackle on an interception that another player dropped the ball on his team. So
I saw that.
He had no drops this year, so he did have more tackles this year than he had drops.
You know what?
Tracks.
It does track. Yeah, I mean, 0% drop rate is unheard of. And then 85.7% contested catch rate on 14 targets is phenomenal. So we didn't even have the PFF numbers the first time that we did an episode on Tate. We were just going off of what we saw with our eyeballs, and then coming back now with these PFF numbers, seeing that it absolutely tracks and backs it up. Basically anything that was remotely catchable, he caught it, and a lot of them were spectacular catches that a lot of other people would not have caught. So I know we're raving about it, but it is truly elite territory. And Makai Lemon, like no slouch in this area by any means. I had him in at 8.5 for hands. He only had a 2.4% drop rate, which is really good. Barely dropped anything that came his way. Very reliable. And then the contested catch, I have it at an 8.5, and that's kind of size adjusted. Like he caught 71% of his contested catch attempts, which at 5'11" is really impressive. Like he definitely had that dog in him. I said the first time that we talked about this, it kind of reminded me of Steve Smith as a smaller player going up and making those contested catches. And I saw that pretty much the same way the second time around. So had him at 8.5, 7 for catch radius, 8 for body control. I did knock him down from a 7.5 to a 7 for physicality. Not a major knock. Or no, I had him at an 8 for physicality. I knocked him down to a 7. And a lot of that was, seeing him get jammed up against press coverage, like I already mentioned. So yeah, overall, like really solid ball skills from Makai Lemon too, but very clear edge here to Carnell Tate. And that's not shade at Makai Lemon. Carnell Tate is just that good. So yeah, before we kind of continue on to the last area here, I do want to take a quick break to shout out for you guys the resources we have available at CouchScouts.com. We just finished our pre-draft edition of the rookie guide. Yeah, you guys are silently giving the golf clap there in the background. Since December 1st, we have been grinding away hundreds of hours of research, 70 plus prospects with in-depth scouting reports, numerical film grades for every category, for every prospect, rankings, all of it. It's everything that you need to be the ultimate cheat sheet to dominate your rookie draft. Whether you want to just draft off of our rankings, you know what? We researched it. We stand behind it. We did hundreds of hours of research so you don't have to. Or whether you want to like read the scouting reports for yourself so that you can kind of make an informed decision based on your team needs when you're on the clock. Use it however you want to use it, but I think it's an adaptable tool that can work with your play style as a dynasty manager and be a really big value add to help you find those hidden gems, especially, know the landmines to avoid a Caleb Johnson in the first round, and know the third or fourth round gems to target that might end up being a league winning player like a Bucky Irving. So we would love for you guys to consider jumping in with the Couch Scouts family. CouchScouts.com, and you can use promo code DRAFT right now for 30% off of your first year with us. And we would definitely encourage you to do that. While I'm on this break too, I also want to mention our bonus draft coverage that we're going to have this week. So this is our last podcast before the NFL draft. It is Tuesday night as we're recording this. The draft is happening on Thursday. And we're going to have a live Discord hangout in our community Discord. That's free. You can click the link in our show notes, join the Discord, no strings attached. We just want to get to know the people that listen to our show. So we'll have a live hangout in the voice chat in the Discord on Thursday night, and I think on Friday as well during day 1 and day 2. We will also be recording instant reaction podcasts after day 1 and day 2 to release the next morning. So Friday morning, our day 1 reaction podcast will be live on air. Saturday morning, our day 2 reaction podcast will be live on air. And then at the end of day 3, we're going to do like a really early instant reaction post NFL draft rookie mock. So that one was one of our most watched episodes last year, and I think it'll be a really fun one to do again. So keep an eye out for all of our draft coverage, and definitely check out CouchScouts.com. With all that being said, we're going to get into the final segment here of our trait breakdown, and that is athleticism and yards after the catch. So let's start with you, Rupert. Did you notice anything differently than the first time that you watched these guys?
Pretty much, I didn't actually change anything on Lemon. I pretty much feel like I was pretty spot on with what I had. So I had 7.5 for his game speed, but 8.5 for his burst and 9 for quickness. Just very bursty. So hard to contain in a phone booth. Tate, I had 8s across the board for game speed, burst, quickness. I just bumped his quickness down from 8 to 7.5. Watching him after watching Tyson and having Tyson at 8, felt like I had to bump it down there on the quickness. But I think what you said earlier, he wins by just how smooth and how he glides. I won't let that 40-yard dash at the combine fool me. I still think he has really good long speed, and he is just like that fluid athlete. He's really good with the pads on. You don't have to be good in the underwear Olympics to be able to win deep.
No, I would agree with Rupert. I pretty much kept everything the same. I did bring the game speed of Makai Lemon down from an 8 to a 7.5. Not a huge change, but I did notice that kind of top elite gear. I don't think he has, which is not a problem because he's still so good everywhere else. He's bursty, he's quick in the phone booth. Dude is a yards after the catch menace. So I don't think that impacts him at all. One change that I did note, I had Carnell Tate at an 8 for both game speed and burst. I brought him up to an 8.5 for game speed and burst. He appeared faster and more bursty, if that's even an adjective. I don't know. Than he was in the first watch. After watching all the guys that we've watched, those hundreds of hours of film, like Carnell Tate is somebody that moves with an extra gear, and that's something that I kind of came away realizing after that second watch.
Yeah, I already had Carnell Tate at an 8.5 for speed, 8.5 for burst. I bumped that burst down to an 8. I think I mean, 8 is a great score, right? I still think he's got really good burst. But I did think it maybe took him a little bit to build up to it. And the defense gave him so much cushion because his top speed was. So, I mean, I don't know. I could go straight back to an 8.5. I'm really kind of torn on how to grade him there. The quickness, I had it in an 8. I left it there. And yeah, so I didn't change much. Definitely not overreacting to the combine. Like very first play, rewatching Carnell Tate, he's like blowing past the DB, and the DB's having to like flip his hips and sprint to try to not get. I mean, guys are falling over themselves trying to not get burnt down the field by this guy. So whatever happened in the 40-yard dash is irrelevant to me. He's definitely a burner on the field. And then, yeah, watching these two guys back to back, it was pretty clear who the better athlete was. And that's Carnell Tate. Makai Lemon, again, like you said, like I've got slight edge to Lemon on quickness. I've got him in at 8.5 versus Tate was at an 8. The burst is maybe similar between those two. I think you especially see it when Lemon gets the ball in his hands. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But as soon as Lemon gets the ball in his hands, that burst to just like defeat angles is really startling. So he does get up to top speed quickly, but I totally agree with you, Jackson. Like that top gear, just night and day different. So 8.5 versus a 7.5. It's a full point difference, and I think that's warranted between the two. Like Carnell Tate is just a good bit faster. He's also, he's taller. If I had to give an edge and burst, I would give it to Tate. So Makai Lemon's better in those short areas, but overall, I think Tate is the higher level athlete. But with the ball in their hands, that phone booth like quickness difference between the two of them definitely shows up for Lemon. And a lot of it is because Lemon got those kind of short to intermediate targets at a much higher volume than Tate. And so he was in more situations that kind of lend themselves to yards after catch. But man, there's like very little evidence on tape for Tate that he is a special yak threat. Like there's one play, I think maybe it was against Minnesota, where he catches a slant and he kind of sidesteps the guy and they clip his ankles, but he keeps his feet and then he runs for a really long way. But most of the plays, it's like Carnell Tate catches it and goes down, or maybe gets a yard or two extra. Usually the first guy that gets to him tackles him. That's backed up, basically everywhere that you look. If you look at Matt Harmon's reception perception, the data for Carnell Tate in terms of making the first guy miss, it's not good. If you look at PFF right here, which we have in front of us, Carnell Tate averaged 4.5 yards after catch per attempt. Lemon averaged 6.5. So that's like a whole extra 2 yards per reception after the catch that Lemon was getting that Tate wasn't. Lemon was 40th out of 270 in missed tackles forced per reception. Tate was 197th out of 270. So he was pretty low as far as like the whole FBS goes in terms of forced missed tackles per reception. So for me, that is like the clearest tick in Makai Lemon's favor. I have him in an 8.5 for yards after catch. I have Tate at a 6. So, and I could even potentially go down to like a 5 for Tate. I do think that this is a real limitation. And I do think it's fair to wonder if Tate was getting more of those layup targets and more opportunities and you're throwing him screens and stuff, if you would have seen more of that in his game. That's probably the only reason I didn't drop him down to 5. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, this is the biggest area of concern for me in Tate's profile. Do you guys see it the same way?
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I've got him at a 6, and I could totally warrant, like you said, going down to a 5 there. He's not somebody that's really, I don't know if it's not that he's doing anything after the catch, or if he doesn't have the opportunity, but right now we don't know, even if that in his profile, if that's something he can do. And this is where Makai Lemon has the edge, right? Like he is a yards after the catch guy. Like he's quick in a phone booth. Like this is why, paired with some of his route running and stuff, that you're talking about him as a top wide receiver in this class.
In alignment, I'm not concerned about Tate because he can still be like in his archetype. Like he doesn't have to be a yak weapon to be a successful fantasy producer. So I'm not worried about it. It would just been a nice kind of like cherry on top to his profile.
Let me say this. I'm not as worried about his yards after the catch ability that I am about him going to the Browns at like pick 6. That worries me more.
I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, they don't have a quarterback and notoriously bad organization, but at least like the man would get force-fed targets like crazy there because there's really nobody else. I mean, Harold Fannin, I guess, but yeah, to be fair, like I already have Tate graded as an elite fantasy producer. So his grade bumped up a couple points for me on second watch. Whereas, and this is where I said there's some takeaways here, because on first watch, I said after watching Tate and Lemon and Tyson, there wasn't really a clear number one for me. On second watch, there is, and it's Carnell Tate. Like I can see now the reason that like every mock draft has Carnell Tate going in the top 10 and the other guys are more in the like 15 or later range in most of these. Like he's just that caliber of prospect. The production profile isn't what you would want it to be, although there's context there with who he played with at Ohio State. I think it's fair to be worried about, the translation from a fantasy standpoint. Is he going to be a guy that gets peppered with targets? Or is he just going to be a really good NFL player that's maybe a little bit more boom or bust for fantasy? So I get it. I get those concerns. I can see how Lemon's play style stylistically, like a couple years ago, I had Marvin Harrison Jr. graded higher than Malik Neighbors. But I'm not shocked that Malik Neighbors' play style has lent itself to more fantasy points. I am shocked that Marvin Harrison has been as disappointing as he has been. That's a different discussion. But I think this is a similar situation to me, where I think like Tate stylistically is more like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Lemon is stylistically more like Malik Neighbors. I don't think either of them is quite the caliber of prospect as the two guys I'm naming there. But Yeah, but for me, like I have it at an 82.3 at this point for Carnell Tate. He's like firmly in the elite fantasy producer tier. And my second highest graded is Makai Lemon at a 79.2. So that's a 3-point difference between the two, which is fairly substantial. And let's just hypothetically, let's say if Tate had an 8 for Yak instead of a 5, because I did make that change as we were talking. I was like, all right, I'm going to bump him down to a 5. He would go up to an 83.95 for me, which, I mean, again, that's like really, really high level territory. Now, that's not true. He's not good at Yak. I'm pointing out like that's his one real weakness, and otherwise, like route running, hands, the ball skills, the athleticism, like he's an elite prospect from a tape standpoint. And that's why I can see NFL teams salivating over him as a top 10 pick in spite of the limited production profile, because the tape looks like a top 10 talent to me. And I already have had one pre-NFL draft, rookie draft, where I had to make this decision, and I took Tate at 1-2. Or no, excuse me, I was at 1-3. The guy in front of me at 2 took Mendoza. I took Tate over Lemon, over Tyson, over Concepcion. And I'm after this second watch, I'm even happier with that decision than I was before.
Yeah, no, I have him at 1-2. He's clearly my wide receiver 1. Admittedly, just purely based on tape grade, this is not where I have them in my rankings, but purely based on tape grade, I've got Casey Concepcion at 2, which I'm not sure if I'm doing that right or not, but
Concepcion's at 4 for me on tape grade.
Worth noting.
Yeah, on the rewatch, Tate bumped up over an 80 for me. So in that elite territory, he's at 80.2. I have Tyson still at an 80.28. And yeah, I think I have Tyson ahead of Tate in my rankings again. I've flip-flopped on that one back and forth the past week. Really like them both. I really like all top 4 of these guys. So I'll be happy to get any of them. Very, very interested to see where the landing spots are in 2 days.
Yeah, that can be a tiebreaker for sure. Now, I think I'm at a point where I'm ready to say, like, I mean, a 3-point higher grade for Tate over the next highest guy. I think I'm ready to say that I don't want the NFL draft to be a tiebreaker. Like, I don't want to react to the NFL draft. I think Tate will probably be my wide receiver 1 almost no matter what happens on Thursday night. But Thursday night can definitely affect the order of the other 3 guys, Lemon, Concepcion, and Tyson. We talked about Tyson a couple weeks ago. I'm not as bullish as you are, Rupert. I saw more concerns, with physicality and with at times press coverage and at times in the contested catch and stuff than you did. So yeah, for me, he's still those couple points lower, and I'm also higher on Tate than you. Like, you're at an 80.2, I'm at an 82. So that's a 2-point difference between where you're at on Tate and where I'm at on Tate. And just going through the individual attributes, I'm not sure exactly. I'm a little bit. You're at an 8 for speed and burst. I was at an 8.5. You're at a 6.
1.5 higher on physicality.
Yeah, you're 6 for physicality. I was at a 7.5 after second watch. So, yeah, those are. I was a little bit higher on release too. You're at 7. I'm a 7.5. Same thing with short to intermediate. So, I mean, we're talking about 0.5-point differences, but in a bunch of different categories. So, yeah, I get where you're at, but for me, Tate right now is clearly my number 1. So, and what you guys will see on the rookie guide will be a composite of our 3. So, you'll see, if 2 of us have Tate at 1-2 and one of us has Tate at 1-3, you're still going to see Tate at 1-2 in our rookie guide rankings, that type of thing. So, and you'll see a composite of our 3 film scores. So, if I'm at 82 and the other guys are at closer to 80, you might see 81 show up there on the recliner rating. So,
and if you let Cooper's take better, you can just sort by his rankings. completely and just follow him.
Actually, I don't think we currently have that functionality. If that's a request, if you would like to be able to sort, we have that for our dynasty rankings. You can sort by rank set, but we don't currently have that on the rookie guide. So if you'd like to be able to sort,
it was Dynasty I was thinking about.
yeah, if you'd like to be able to sort by our individual rank sets for the rookie guide, I think that's something that I could make happen. So hit me up in the Discord. All that being said, we appreciate you guys listening. We're super excited for the NFL draft. So come hang out with us in the Discord on Thursday night. Leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast app you're listening on, and hope you guys have a blessed week.